Welcome to the deep dive where we try to cut through the noise and get straight to what really matters. Today, we're plunging into something it sparked a huge debate across Hollywood, and let's be honest, left a lot of us kind of scratching our heads. We're talking about the summer 2025 box office. Was it a flat out flop, like some headlines screamed, or did it actually manage to, hold its own, maybe even thrive in some ways? We've got these conflicting reports, and we're going deep into the numbers, and unpacking the arguments that are really shaping the future of cinema. It's fascinating stuff. So our mission today is to figure out what success even looks like for movies now in this really dynamic landscape. We'll unpack the raw financial data, look at how we as moviegoers are changing our habits, and face that critical need for the film industry to adapt big time. But we're also going to explore this really powerful counter-narrative. It's coming from multicultural content creators, and they're arguing that Hollywood is basically missing a huge and frankly profitable opportunity. So what does this all mean for traditional cinema and diverse storytelling? Let's jump into this deep dive. Okay, so let's kick things off with those immediate headlines. You saw them everywhere this summer, right? That cry of after high hopes, Hollywood summer box office falls flat again. Who knew? When you just look at those initial raw numbers, what's the first take? Does that headline really hold up?
Well, you look at the core data, right? U.S. and Canada domestic box office. It grossed $3.67 billion this summer. Now, to put that in perspective, it's a tiny dip from $3.68 billion in 2024, but it is noticeably less than 2023's summer. Remember Barbenheimer? That pushed it up to $4 billion. So yeah, on the surface, we're looking at maybe a $100 million gap from what the industry typically aims for. So yeah, it does sound like it's falling flat if you're just comparing it to those huge peak years.
Yeah, that $100 million gap, I mean, it sounds pretty grim on its own, doesn't it? But what's so interesting is how fast the internet, places like Reddit just lit up with a completely different interpretation. You had users arguing that if you actually exclude those massive, once-in-a-decade hits from last summer, Inside Out 2, Deadpool, Wolverine, then 2025 didn't just do okay, it actually did, and I quote, fine or better. One user even claimed, get this, that if just one or two other movies had made over $1 billion, this summer would have surpassed 2023 and 2024 with ease. I mean, is there any real merit to that, or is it just, fans being hopeful?
That's a really important point, actually. It really gets to the heart of how we even define success here. It's true, you can always play the what-ifs game with blockbusters. But that Reddit argument, it highlights something key. The spread of success matters. A couple of monster hits can totally skew the overall picture, right? Making an otherwise decent summer look kind of lackluster. So yeah, the raw total was down. But the idea that a broader range of films might have performed fine or better, well, that suggests the average moviegoer might still be heading to the cinema. Just maybe not for those history-making blockbusters we saw last year.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah, the spread versus the peaks. So, okay, if we zoom out a bit, keeping that nuanced summer performance in mind, what's the overall year-end outlook for 2025 looking like? Are we heading for a really dismal year overall, or could these summer numbers be a bit of a red herring?
Well, despite the sort of flat summer, the overall year-end projections for 2025, they're actually still expected to come in above both 2023 and 2024. A lot of that optimism is pinned on Q4. We're talking the big hitters, Zootopia 2, Wicked 2, and Avatar 3. These are films with huge built-in audiences, massive expectations. But we can't just ignore the specific struggles during the summer months. June, for instance, only pulled in $830 million. That's actually a 24-year low if you exclude the COVID years. And August was even weaker, just $675 million. So even if the year balances out on paper because of a strong finish, parts of the summer were definitely lean. It shows some vulnerability in the schedule.
It's interesting when you look at the individual films, too, because they really highlight these points, like Fantastic Four, first steps, strong start, right? But then, bam, a 66% drop in its second weekend. That's steep. But then you have Superman crossing $550 million globally. That's pretty solid. And then there's Jurassic World, Rebirth. Anecdotally, some critics, some online folks absolutely crap on it, but it keeps making money as a financial success. And that points to this really fascinating disconnect, doesn't it, between the vocal online bubbles, the really engaged film fans, and what we might call the normie audiences. It makes you wonder if Hollywood's marketing gets too swayed by Twitter, maybe, and misses the broader public who still want those familiar franchises. It's not just critics versus audience. It's like, which audience are they listening to? Are they misreading mainstream demand?
Absolutely. That disconnect. It's critical. It really suggests that while the industry is, super attuned to Reddit chatter or Twitter debates, those conversations might not actually reflect the ticket buying habits of the wider population. The success of something like Jurassic World, Rebirth, despite the online noise, proves that a known brand, big spectacle, and easy story. It still resonates with millions. And hey, let's not forget Weapons, that horror movie. A certified smash hit, it basically carried August. Its success shows that certain genres, especially horror, if done well and not costing a fortune to make, they consistently find their audience, regardless of the bigger trends.
Right. So we've picked apart the summer numbers, looked at some specific film stories, but now let's zoom out again, because this isn't just about one summer, is it? There are these much deeper structural things going on, shaping these box office trends. What are those underlying reasons for this evolving landscape?
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is these trends, they aren't entirely new, not at all. If you actually look at inflation-adjusted box office numbers and the number of tickets sold, there's been a pretty consistent downward trend since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
This isn't some sudden cliff dive. It lines up almost perfectly with the rise of better and better home entertainment. HDTV is becoming common, then DVDs, Blu-rays, and then boom, the streaming explosion. COVID, of course, as one source put it, absolutely tanked it, brought everything to a halt. But really, it acted more like an accelerant. It just pushed a pre-existing decline into high gear.
That long-term view makes so much sense when you think about how our habits have changed, but is it just about having a nice TV at home? Or is there something else making that, like, $100 ticket price for a family feel heavier now? I mean, I was thinking just last month about taking my family out, and just the tickets alone before popcorn or anything, it felt like a serious investment. A lot of people now have, pre-solid home theater setups. They'd just rather wait for it to hit PVOD, that's premium video on demand, basically renting new movies at home sooner. Or just wait for regular streaming. Like one person online said it could cost close to $100 JST for tickets for like 4 people. Oh, no. So waiting 2-3 months for whatever movie to be available to stream, it's not just cheaper. It feels like the obvious choice for a lot of families now, right?
Precisely. That cost-benefit calculation is huge. It's not just convenience, it's perceived value. If you can get most of the experience at home, the bar for going to the theater has to be incredibly high to justify the cost and the hassle. And this ties right into another big challenge. Just plain audience fatigue. You hear commenters mention it all the time. This feeling of mega-budget superhero sequel, prequel, unoriginal remake, CGI, film cycle, and IP overload, meaning just too many movies based on stuff we already know instead of fresh ideas. One person even called a lot of it Tinseltown crap unloaded to the masses via an algorithm and ChatGPT plotting. Ouch. But it speaks to this real hunger for quality, for originality, that maybe isn't being met by the constant stream of sequels and remakes.
Wow, Tinseltown crap unloaded via an algorithm. That's harsh, but it definitely resonates with how some people feel, doesn't it? It's like it's not just a few bad movies. It sounds more like a fundamental disappointment with the whole creative pipeline, a feeling that Hollywood's just playing it safe instead of innovating. And the risk, I guess, is audiences just stop seeing the point of going to the cinema for something that feels predictable. But this isn't just a U.S. problem, right? I'm really curious about the global side, especially China. That used to be massive for Hollywood, didn't it? What's the situation there now? I hear things have shifted.
Oh, absolutely. The China market. It used to be this almost guaranteed billion-dollar booster shot for Hollywood blockbusters.
Yeah.
But that landscape, it's changed dramatically. China just isn't watching Hollywood films like they used to. Plain and simple. Their own domestic film industry has gotten incredibly strong, and there's a definite preference for local stories, local stars. Plus, even when a Hollywood film does hit big there, the studios often only see about 30% of the box office take, and there are these well-known difficulties in actually getting that money out of the country. So, yeah, a market that was once a financial safety net, it's now way less reliable. And that significantly hits the global profits for studios, forcing them to rethink their whole international game plan.
Okay, so with all these shifting sands, declining numbers, audience fatigue, the China situation changing, what does it all mean for the industry? How are traditional theaters trying to adapt? And what about the content itself? How is Hollywood trying to navigate all this?
Well, theaters are definitely scrambling, trying different things. Some quite creative, actually. The head of AMC, for example, he's talked openly about showing sports, live streaming concerts, and he highlighted the huge revenue, like an estimated $100 million just from stuff like special popcorn buckets and merch. They're also exploring cheaper private rentals, more variety, like showing the Super Bowl, trying to broaden the appeal beyond just movies. Some cinemas even had success just lowering prices temporarily, like $4 ticket days, just to get people in seats. Proves price still matters.
It's a real evolution, isn't it? From movie house to broader entertainment hub. And then there's this other trend you hear about, the upscale move. Fewer people going overall. Yeah, like admissions are down maybe 30% from pre-pandemic, but the ones who are going, they're spending more on the fancy seats, better food, drinks, a whole luxury experience. It's shifting the cinema trip from just a casual thing to more of a deliberate, pricey event.
Do you think that strategy has legs in the long run? That upscale shift, it's definitely a strategy, trying to capture maybe a different, less price-sensitive audience. It's a gamble, though. But speaking of rethinking what actually draws an audience, if we really want to talk about adaptations, we absolutely have to talk about content, specifically diversity. There's some really stark research from Artel Great at the NYU Cinema Research Institute. He points out what he calls Hollywood's fallacious logic, this totally wrong assumption that diverse films don't sell. He uses a UCLA study that found films with like 21-30% multicultural involvement. Their median global box office was $160.1 million. Compare that to films with 10% or less minority involvement, only $68.5 million median. That data just blows up the old assumptions. It really exposes a massive financial blind spot.
Those numbers are just wow, they're incredibly stark. Think about it. People of color make up 36% of the U.S. population, right? I get this, 57% of the actual movie-going audience. Yet only 2% of Hollywood movies feature a predominantly diverse cast. I mean, that's not just nonsensical storytelling-wise. It's, like you said, fiscally unsound based on that data. It feels like a huge, glaring, self-inflicted missed opportunity. What is behind this disconnect? Why does it persist despite the clear money on the table?
That's the core question, isn't it? And it's where Artel Great brings in this concept of semiological warfare. Basically, it's about how dominant media doesn't just shape what we see, but how we interpret it, what we even think is valuable. And often that works against the interests and perspectives of people of color. The argument is, if the media you consume constantly reinforces certain norms, certain looks, certain stories, it can just sideline everything else. He makes this really interesting historical comparison to the race films back in the early 1900s. These were movies made by and for black audiences, totally outside the Hollywood system, because Hollywood just wasn't serving them. It showed this amazing self-reliance. So fast forward to today, Artel Great's Project Catalyst is trying to do something similar, but for the modern era, using new tech to create alternative entertainment options, boost media visibility for multicultural content, connect directly with those underserved audiences. The core idea is simple but powerful. Visibility equals power. If audiences don't see themselves, they don't engage. And that's a loss for everyone, culturally and commercially.
That's a really powerful way to frame it, connecting that history to modern efforts. It suggests the future might need more than just the old studio system. But, okay, amidst all these challenges, falling attendance, money pressures, the need for diverse stories, one thing that stands out to me, and you mentioned it earlier, is horror. That genre just seems to defy the odds, keeps delivering. Why do you think horror specifically is so resilient?
It absolutely is. Horror's proven remarkably tough. Look at The Conjuring, Last Rites, recently. Opened with an estimated $65 million. That's a record for the franchise. And it had the best preview night for a horror movie this year to date.
Yeah.
It also got a really strong 60% definite recommend from audiences. And interestingly, Latino and Hispanic audiences, they made up a huge 44% of that preview crowd.
Yeah.
So that shows this incredibly strong, dedicated fan base. Even if critics were just okay on it, 58% on Rotten Tomatoes, it implies that for horror, that audience loyalty, that shared experience, often matters more than reviews. That's key.
Exactly. And it's not just Conjuring, right? We saw Weapons cross $100 million domestic, over $180 million worldwide. Final Destination, Bloodlines open strong too, $51 million. It just keeps reinforcing the genre's muscle. It almost feels like the safest bet for studios right now, doesn't it?
It often seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Horror's resilience probably comes down to a few things. Often, they have smaller budgets, right? So less financial risk.
Yeah.
They tap into this really loyal, passionate audience that shows up. And crucially, horror still offers that unique event feeling. People want to be scared together in a dark room. It enhances the experience. Although, it's worth noting, even within a hit franchise like Conjuring, you can see a bit of a downward trajectory domestically since the first one, which suggests that even reliable genres might need, strategic breaks, careful storytelling to keep things fresh and avoid that fatigue setting in.
Right. Even horror isn't totally immune. So as we look towards the end of 2025 with all these complex threads, what's the final feeling? Industry insiders are saying the end of the year is going to be very big. We've got Avatar 3 coming, projected over $2 billion globally, plus Wicked 2, Zootopia 2. Can these huge movies actually rescue the year? Can they reshape the narrative after that shaky summer?
Oh, they absolutely have the potential to. These are massive tentpole releases. Established beloved franchises, they could significantly boost the year's overall box office, no question. A movie like Avatar 3, if it hits that $2 billion projection, that alone can massively shift the yearly totals. So, yeah, while the summer was definitely a mixed bag, these big Q4 releases could definitely ease a lot of the earlier worries. It reinforces the idea that while viewing habits are changing, the appetite for big, high-quality event cinema, especially with strong IP, it's still very much alive.
So, okay, let's sum this all up. The box office. It isn't dying, not in that apocalyptic way some headlines shout about, but it is undeniably going through a profound transformation, a huge shift. It's grappling with these long-term trends or changing preferences as viewers, the tough economics of making movies, and this absolute need to adapt, both how movies are distributed and what kinds of stories get told. What we're really seeing is a dynamic, evolving landscape, yeah? Not necessarily a collapsing one. And this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener. Given the clear financial data we talked about, the numbers supporting diverse content, and knowing there's this massive, eager audience out there hungry for stories that actually reflect their lives, what is really holding Hollywood back from fully embracing a more inclusive vision for cinema? And maybe more importantly, what power do you as a moviegoer, as a consumer, actually have to influence that future beyond just buying a ticket? Something to think about. Until next time, keep digging deeper.